to welcome all of you and our three speakers, but I'll leave that to our panel moderator, Ms. Moira de Roche, who's now well known to many of us to do so, but welcome to Moira, Dr. Stella, and Professor Lynn Futcher. Moira, I don't really want to say too much at this stage, other than that we do have our Ethics in IT video, which we will be kicking off with. It's a brand new video that the Social and Ethics Committee of the Institute, together with Management and Marketing, has put together. And we're very proud of this video. I think it gives us some good insights into the value and importance of ethics in IT. So we are going to kick off with that, and I see the numbers are coming up nicely. So I'm going to keep on talking nonsense for half a minute before I launch the video, and then we'll go into the panel discussion. Very warm welcome. I do see we have our Social Ethics Chair, Josina Overdefest, on board. Welcome, Josina, as well, and various others who are in the audience, the webinar audience. So good afternoon, warm welcome from quite a warm Johannesburg, very sunny and about 28 degrees. Not sure what it's like around the rest of the country. But we are going to kick off with our brand new Ethics in IT video, which is available on our YouTube channel. Once it's run, I will post the links in our chat and wish you to publicize it broadly and widely and encourage your colleagues to watch. So I'm going to kick over to the video and we'll be back with you. Well, the video will play, it takes about 3 minutes, and then we will be back with you and I'll hand over to Moira. Thank you all. Okay, it looks like Murphy is playing a game because the video was visible in the pre-room and it's not visible now. I'm just going to quickly pick up the link, so please bear with me for one moment. Apologies about that, but Murphy is our favorite in IT. So I'm just picking up the link of the video. We will hopefully get it. If not, we will sort it out later. Okay. Moira, I'm wasting time here. Could you please take over and we'll run it at the end? I do apologize. I don't know what's happened here, but I will fix it so we can play it at the end of the webinar. Thank you so much.
Okay, no problem. Thank you, Tony. Okay, good afternoon, everybody, and thanks for being here. We're looking forward to this seminar or webinar, and we decided that everybody really, 20 years ago we used to talk about death by PowerPoint, and now we're really dead from PowerPoint. So we agreed that maybe we would get more out of this if instead of showing you slides, we actually had a conversation. And we hope that we keep your attention. Please ask questions all the way through. We might address them at the time or leave them for later. I want to just introduce Professor Lynn Futcher and Dr. Stella Bvuma, who are our honored guests here today. We couldn't have more high-profile women who I think fly the flag for women in IT. But to start with, we want to talk about the skills that you need to develop your career in IT. Prof. Lynn, can I start with you and ask, what are the most in-demand skills in IT today?
Okay, well, let's maybe just start back. I thought maybe I could just start by giving a little bit from my side and where I come from. So yeah, just so that everybody can understand my context. So so I was very fortunate that I've obviously been around for quite a while, and I studied way back in the 1980s. I did a BSc in computer science and accountancy. So I really, at that point in time, already saw the importance of being able to combine computer science and business, because I think that is a very, very key thing. So when people are looking at getting into IT, I think a lot of people think about, oh, I need to get into coding. That's the only way I can get into IT. That's the main thing. If I can't code, then I'm made for IT. So I think there are so many different skills that we can talk about because of the pervasiveness of IT. And, you know, one harps on technical skills. Obviously, there are the non-technical skills are as important as those technical skills. So I really like to, you know, encourage people to say to them, you know, it's especially as being women in IT, a lot of us tend to be, I think we are very logical. So I think that is really, really key. And I think we are very good at problem solving. But very importantly, I think many women come with a special kind of characteristic in terms of having the logical skills and also having those creative skills. And if we talk IT, to me, there are so many skills that are intertwined from a creative point of view, from a problem-solving point of view, from a curiosity point of view, from a continuous learning point of view. So, you know, I think we must move away from this idea that, you know, to be in IT, you actually need to be a coder. And for me, I do come from a coding background. I certainly did enjoy my days of being a coder. But I must be honest, if you had to sit me down now and say, well, code something, I would probably go through a little bit of a learning curve to be able to get back to where I was. But from my skills, I can honestly say that being where I am today, I've developed such a broad set of skills. As I said, the coding skills, there were project management skills. I used to get involved in terms of end user support, just being able to communicate with people, understand what their needs were, understand what their frustrations are. So I think those communication skills are also so key, because to be able to understand the needs of your users and the people that we are actually developing these technologies for is just so important. So to me, as women in IT, we can fit into we can fit in and can fill so many gaps, even if we feel that technically we may not be the strongest coders at this point in time. I just want to emphasize that that is not the only way to go in terms of IT. And I've slowly moved from a coding kind of set of skills to more into the cybersecurity skills, into the research space, because I also believe that in terms of skills in IT, you cannot be in IT without having very strong research skills, because there's so much information out there. There's so much for us to learn on an ongoing basis. So it's really that curiosity, that wanting to learn all the time, that to me is absolutely key. So I'm not sure, Moira, if that directly answers your question in terms of what are the key skills that are required at this point in time. But certainly, I think my message is it's really a very, very, very broad set of skills, and we can plug those gaps in so many ways.
Thank you, Lynn. I don't know where the noise is coming from.
I can also hear a lot of background noise. It's not coming from my side.
Can we just mute ourselves? Thank you. And I totally agree with you. And I too even used to teach COBOL programming. Now I'm really telling my age. I would be hard pressed to sit down and code. However, before everybody throws coding out of the window, whenever I've been asked in the past few years by the press, and I have on several occasions, about teaching coding at school, they ask me what I think about it, and I say it's an excellent idea. Not because we want to have 1 million coders out there, but because it's such a good way of teaching thinking skills. Because if you've got good logic, you can think. And there are not a lot of ways to actually teach people to think. So I think that that's the value of coding. And I want to say this so that if we have any young women here who's still at school, or parents whose kids are doing coding, it is a good skill to have. I always used to laugh because they'd say, but can we force the children to do coding? And I have to say, but you force them to do geography. So what's the difference? at least this is something that will maybe take them places. But I do agree that it's those wider skills, or what I like to call power skills, that are so important. And also we need to broaden our horizons, because that's how we move along. We maybe don't move upwards, but we move on to parallel career paths, which is also very important. Stella, I very much, and sorry, I'm not one to stand on professors and doctors. The people that I speak at SCiiS, they call me Professor Doctor, and I'm neither. But anyway, would you like to tell us what in-demand skills there are and your views on all of this?
Thank you very much, and good late afternoon, everyone, depending on where you are. I think what is very important, I would have loved to know who our viewers are. It would be nice for them to type for us in the chat and just tell us who they are and what they are doing, so that we may know who we're engaging with. It's quite important for me, for people to know. But on that same breath, I'd also like to tell people who I am. People see Stella with this title, or maybe Stella on social media, or even on this platform. I think it's important to know that, Stella, it's often referred to as a township or a rural area girl. I grew up in the township. I was raised by my parents in the township. However, the idea was to eventually, work in the city like they wish to. But originally, my parents are from the village. That's why you often hear the township or the rural girl. So officially, I would say I grew up in the rural area, because that's home, from Limpopo. But how I got into the IT space is very interesting, is that I was actually inducted through a book that was given to me when I was doing an English public note speaking, because at that time I didn't know what was information technology. But this book was titled Information Technology, which got me into the IT space. But nonetheless, I think because of this lesser role models at that time who would induct you of what exactly IT is all about, or you wouldn't see quite a lot of people talking information technology. It was a little bit of a challenge for a girl like myself, coming from that background. All I knew was other sectors: teachers, police, nurses, banking, and so forth. But perhaps maybe before I talk about the skills that I think is important, all of us, we know that we are like the most wanted bride now by either any sector. The future looks really bright for IT professionals, with ample of opportunities for those that are willing to invest in their skills and also adapt to new technologies, whether in the global tech hubs or in any market in South Africa for that matter. But for me is, when you look at the future skills, the question should be, what are the key career progressions that you should look at in terms of you making that presence, in terms of you being employable, if I may put it in those inverted commas. Of course, because of the so-called digital transformation rise and the new technologies that are emerging, the changes in business, and also what consumers need, it then means that there is this evolution that translates into dynamic demand of certain skills, both for today and even in the future, that we don't even know whether certain skills will be required. So I will certainly look at it in terms of saying, what are the career progression? What is it that you're doing to make sure that you are actually in the space of specializing, you are in the space that requires all of the skills? I mean, we can talk cybersecurity, that a lot of people have spoken about. It's not a new thing. It's been in existence. Like I'm saying, it's exacerbated by the fact that digital transformation is now the key things. And thanks to COVID-19, for us in the ICT sector, that we are now recognized as really, really key strategic partners within any business or any sector. So for me, would be to look at, what is it that you do to make sure that you are relevant in those spaces, in your cybersecurity, in your cloud computing, in your artificial intelligence or machine learning, in your data analysis, in your blockchain, in your all of this kind of nice terminologies that we have in IT. So that's how I will respond to the question, to say, maybe perhaps as female, as a woman myself, one of the key things that I think it's important is to look at continuous learning. Surprisingly, yes, I'm still studying today. I still feel like I don't know much. And also it's made because I'm in the IT space. You know, you spoke about research. Definitely, Prof. Research is important because research is not really writing a thesis or doing an academic research investigation. For me, I round it up with continuous learning. Stay current. Are you current with the fast-paced nature of technology? Because it's crucial to stay abreast of the latest trends, tools, and all of the methodologies that happen around our industry. But maybe a simpler way to put it in my closing is that dedicate time and read industry publications and follow relevant blogs. You know, social media is tempting, but follow relevant blogs and make sure that you subscribe to newsletters. That is going to keep you up to date and up to speed. Thank you.
Thank you, Stella. Before I move off that, the in-demand IT skills sector, I'd like to ask both of you. Stella mentioned blockchain, Lynn mentioned cybersecurity, so did Stella, and other technologies, artificial intelligence, robotics, etc. Are there any bubbling under things that, you know, that will, in 5 years' time, that they just come in to be recognized, but nobody really knows about them, kind of skills? And if nobody knows them, I don't know how I can expect you to answer, but you're the researchers, you might be able to tell us something.
Yeah, something that I find quite interesting, Moira, and I certainly am no expert in terms of this, but I mean, if you look at things like biotechnology and bioinformatics and things like that, and obviously quite a lot of talk around like quantum computing, but for me, the whole thing around like augmented reality and just technology becoming like so pervasive in absolutely every single aspect of our lives. I think there's still a lot that's going to be happening in that area, and it's certainly something to keep an eye on. I know in terms of from an artificial intelligence point of view, I like to follow Johann Stein. He does quite a lot of good write-ups in terms of that. And I find his writing really interesting because it makes you critically think about where are we actually going with the technology, and you know, what are the future careers going to look like in terms of ICT. So yeah, so it's difficult to predict. But I mean, if I look at my background, and as I said, I studied in the 1980s, and I often think back and think how fortunate I've been, because that was the decade that the PC came about, and just to have been involved from moving from the mainframe to the personal computer and just seeing things change over a period of time. So that's over the past 20 years. And I try and think forward to how are things going to be in the next 20 years' time. And I think it's really exciting. I think part of me is also a little bit like scared to think of what it's going to be like. But if I just think back of all of the things that have happened in the past 20 years, even how careers have changed over the past 20 years as well. Yeah. I mean, if I talk to so many of my graduates and just the whole place of work, you know, people are working remotely. I mean, I've got people still not wanting to move from PE, but they're sitting and they're working for companies in the States and in India and the UK and all over. And it's just the change has been phenomenal. And I don't think the change is slowing down. I think it's actually, you know, probably becoming even faster. So in 20 years' time, it is going to be interesting to see. And that's why, as Dr. Stella, you said, you need to keep so relevant and you need to keep on reading, because we always say to our graduates, you know, what you learn today is going to be irrelevant in 5 years' time. But it's those key skills, those underlying things that are so important in terms of the critical thinking, the logical thinking, the problem solving, all of those things that make us relevant within the IT space, and that desire to learn and keep up to date, I think, is just so important. So I'm going to be quiet from there.
Thank you, Lynn. A question. It's often said that women like to do things in tech that have real value in the real world. And you mentioned biotech and bioinformatics. Do you see that women are moving into those sort of more practical or more world relevant jobs because of that aspect of doing something that has meaning in the real world, rather than, in other words, writing programs for the sake of it?
Dr. Stella, you want to answer that?
Yeah,
I can take my chances. Well, I think women have always wanted things that are relevant. Perhaps that's one of the reasons why we find ourselves not sustaining certain positions, because we are by nature, I think God wired us to do relevant things. So, of course, there is a shift. I mean, even in the space of cybersecurity, the most commonly spoken about today, you know, you have issues of cyber threats evolving, where in that role, it remains not just in demand, but also highly lucrative, because we also want to earn a living and make a contribution. It's not just we're just coming in to be nice girls and occupy the seats. We're also saying that we want to be part of the bigger pie. So yes, definitely, there are a lot of opportunities in various spaces. It has never been about us as women participating only in various sectors or limited sectors. We want to be in various sectors. I mean, technology allows us to be anywhere else. If we look at, for example, your blockchain, blockchain is just beyond, you know, your cryptocurrency, where those are the technologies that will offer revolutionary use cases in contract management, in supply chain, and in secure transactions. So I am thinking that if I am going to be in the legal space as a woman and assisting, using those technologies in contract management, and why not? Because that's relevant. Can just think about us drafting divorce or these marital policies that are coming out, given the evolving changes or the presence of women in those spaces. So definitely, I think if to answer that question, for me it's really not about women just being in one sector. We could be in any sector. I think with the presence of these various technologies, it allows us to kind of make our presence felt in those sectors. Because, if you look at skills related to development and implementation, I would say in the past, you had quite a lot of men dominating. Even now, I think we're making strides, but we're not making quite a lot of strides in terms of the representation. But I think in those management of your Internet of Things devices and systems that are increasingly in demand, we will see quite a lot of women making changes and also even owning or leading in those sectors.
Okay, thank you. All right.
And I think just to add to that, just to add to that, I think the importance in terms of if we're looking at technology solutions, it's just so key to realize that, a solution that is doesn't have diverse input from a broad range of people, including, people from different backgrounds, different genders, different races, everything. The more diverse your team looking at these solutions, obviously the better the solution is going to be. So, so that's why it's so key to encourage women to get involved, to be part of these solutions, because those solutions are obviously going to be better for everyone.
Thank you, Lynn. That's a very good point about diversity. We can go back to this subject if it comes up again. We don't have to be totally linear in our conversation. But our next talking point is about learning. And both of you have mentioned learning. I must tell you that for me, a good day is when I've learned something new. So I say to myself at the end of the day, what did I learn new today? And it might be how to do something in Excel or in Adobe, or something I read on the internet, or a course I did. So learning is so important, and we've got to have that lifelong learning thing. It's great to have your basic education, but as you say, Lynn, it won't last you for very long. I think you're very generous with the 5 years. I mean, we only have to remember that ChatGPT is not even 2 years old to know how fast time goes by in the IT space. And there are a lot of free courses out there or low-cost courses out there. What is your advice, Stella, about how women, or anybody really, we're talking to women today because it's Girls in Tech Day, but how should women actually use what's available to them to make them better? What would your advice be?
Well, I'm going to be practical on this. It's a very beautiful question. Thanks. I think the important thing is definitely self-learning. To keep up your self-learn, and thanks to the power of the internet, and also we're still advocating for quite a lot of access for women to have access to the internet, because access allows them to participate in quite a lot of things. I often say to my two boys, I've got two young boys at home, when they ask me a question and I don't know and I want to run away from it, because I'll be reminded that, but you have a PhD, you should know the answer. And my answer to them is, Google is your best friend. Google and find the answer there. But on a serious note, I think we're living in a fast-paced world, and the only constant that we have is change. Especially in the job market. Technologies evolve, industry transform, new skills become essential overnight. And amid of this dynamism, I think self-learning emerges not just as an option, but a necessity for those looking to thrive and stay relevant. It is particularly crucial for women aiming to break that glass ceiling, because when you want to transition into any role or a new role, you simply have to ensure that there's career longevity, because if you don't self-learn, then it's a problem. For me, the first step, practically is I always identify the resources that are accessible, and I also look at what is affordable, and I also look at the quality of the content to say, will this take me where I need to go? And of course, thanks to the internet, we are now surrounded by a wealth of knowledge. You can use various platforms. I'm not going to mention them because I'm not on a marketing platform, and I know they're not sponsoring IITPSA. So you can use quite a lot of those. They offer courses in everything from coding, data science to digital marketing and design. And most of these platforms will allow you to audit classes for free or at a minimal cost, providing certifications upon completion for a fee, some of them for free. And I mentioned Google, and I'll say this because I know they do quite a lot in terms of their Google Digital Garage, for instance, where they offer free courses on digital marketing with certifications recognized by industry countrywide. So I think it's quite important that you engage in self-learning. But maybe the other simple practical step that I will share before I leave this question is that you also need to apply what you learn. Theory without practice is ineffective. Look for opportunities, even voluntary ones, because people often see Stella being the current so-and-so in this board, or Stella being the director today, Stella being this. What they do not know is there was quite a lot of service that one had to offer, voluntary ones, where I had to apply whatever the new skill that I got, apply it in the real world, volunteer in certain NGOs, NPOs in my community to kind of make that significant learning and enhances my learning as well. And that allows me to showcase, my skills. I don't think I speak better today, but I still do talk because I just want to improve and make sure that at least I craft my learning, and I also kind of be my own audit in terms of my self-learning pace.
Thank you, and thanks for the point about volunteering. Whenever we have particularly an AGM for IITPSA, I encourage people to volunteer for one of the other committees, explaining that it really gives you an opportunity to learn things that you don't necessarily learn in your day job, particularly if you're quite junior in an organization. You learn planning and organizing, which is a very necessary skill that we actually don't learn at school. You learn how to work in a team. You can rise to be the chapter chair or something like that. So volunteering certainly gives you access to a lot of learning, and as you say, it's not the learning per se, it's rather the opportunity to put what you've learned into action or to learn from the other people around you. So thank you for bringing that up, because I think that's important, that we could read 1 million books, and if we do nothing with it, it's just a million books that we bring. So yes, the application and the transfer of the knowledge back to the job. And indeed, when you're learning anything, you need to say, can I use this? And not just in your job. If you're learning to paint, after you've done it, will you be able to paint? So it is a good question to ask. Lynn, over to you. What can you say about self-learning or online learning courses available?
Yeah, I can say I'm very fortunate because I interact with students every single day of my life, and I learn from my students. So I think the key thing there is to also encourage people to just connect with other people, learn about, show an interest, learn about what other people are doing, because we can learn so much from each other. But yes, I do agree, there is so much content out there for us to learn, whether it's YouTube videos or whether it's going to, you know, your Coursera's or Udemy's. And I know you didn't want to mention any of these names, Stella, but those are really, really affordable options. I see there are various organizations as well that actually have open courseware for you, you know, where they really encourage you to come and learn with us. And all I say to my students, you need to show the initiative. You need to think about where would you like to kind of focus your skills, because it is a very diverse field. Obviously, you need to get a feel for what you're really interested in, what you're really passionate about. But, you know, to be able to spend those hours studying, you also need to have that passion. You have to have that interest. So to me, the current generation is so lucky, because for us, when we wanted to actually learn something, we had to go to the library and go and grab a book from the library. And that was our way of learning, because we did not have the internet. So the youth of today is really fortunate, but at the same time, I do sympathize with them, because it's almost like there is so much out there. Where do we actually start? And I think us as mentors, we need to engage with the younger generation and ask them where their passion is, and to also help guide them in terms of where should they actually start in terms of, you know, tackling some of these online courses. But they are fortunate, because there really is a lot out there.
Yeah, for sure. Just before I carry on, Henrika's asked if we mind if she takes a screenshot to post on LinkedIn. I certainly don't mind. I know that Stella's also very active on LinkedIn.
Not a problem.
Yeah, I think too that we don't have to restrict what we learn, because if you learn something that's not about IT, maybe not even about the business you're in, but something that does stimulate your curiosity and your wanting to learn, it will always enrich you. You know, one of the best online courses I actually did, Udacity Psychology 101, and it was just not the content. The content was excellent, but the way they presented it. So I'm not in psychology. I'm not a psychologist. I have an interest in the subject, but it wasn't going to advance my career in any way. But it was something I was very interested in. Even more creative endeavors, like learning to paint or knit or whatever online, creative endeavors actually also help stimulate your curiosity, but are also a way of switching off from the very technical things, which I think are very good for the brain. So I think that we should learn, and we should say, I want to advance my career, but I also want to make sure that I'm quite a well-rounded person. And yes, fantastic that we have all these resources available. And I don't think that the younger generation realizes how lucky they are with all the resources that are available. But it is hard to figure out what to use and what not to use. So curating it is also an issue. Okay, so if we want to, just stepping aside from learning for a minute, what about building our own brand? What do we need to do to build our brand so that we have credibility out there, and can, you know, when we go somewhere, when we post on LinkedIn, people sit up and take notice. What can we do for that? Stella, you go.
I knew that was going to start with me, but my aunt always says you are a social butterfly. When do you get time to work because you're on media? But that's about branding. So I think building your own brand, you know, everyone should be on an empowering journey to uncover the essence of building their own brand. In the era where your digital footprint can either elevate or hinder your career, understanding how to meticulously craft your professional identity is no longer optional. I think it's essential because your brand is dynamic. It's an ongoing process. And I call it ongoing process because you have to first be authentic. You can't put something out there that does not resonate with your values, who you are. You know, it's not about selling something that is not authentic. So one of the key success things is to be authentic. People that know me very well and close will tell you that I'm not a shy person. However, I don't like to talk about what I've achieved. In actual fact, when people read my bio, each time when I go to speak, I often cringe because it sounds like it's an obituary. You know, I don't want people saying she has done this and so. But I think for me, the revelation came when my mentor said to me, look, first you have to ask the question, why do you do it? What is your main reason? And I think answering my why was to say, it's not about me, you know, it's about that young girl that looks like me, that I left in the township, in the village, you know, to actually know that it is doable. There is somebody that looks like them. I did my qualifications. I think I only had the privilege to see one person in my postgrad who looks like me, where, you know, while facilitating, which is not a nice thing, you know, without being racial or so. And then I'm not speaking it in terms of demeaning, but the truth is it does something into your brain where you feel, am I part of this? Do I belong in this sector? Is this for me? Because it kind of questions your true values. So I think for building your brand, for me, is showcase your work, you know, be authentic in showcasing your work. Speak and write publicly as well. I write opinion pieces. It's not an easy thing, you know, in academia to write thesis, supervise, and also serve in various boards, but also having to write what you think. You know, speak, write, engage in speaking opportunities such as this, industry events, this webinars, writing blogs or relevant topics, and that can also elevate your visibility and also establish your thought leadership. Social media, it's a beautiful platform. You know, I know that people often say, you know, social media will break you. You don't have to go out there. In actual fact, one male, I think he meant well. It's a male person who wrote to me and said, look, this is not a good thing. I think you might need to slow down. Some people will be jealous of this. But, you know, for me, it was questioning my why, because that advice came from a place of you're boasting. It's not about that. You know, for me, it's my why. It's about that person. So in summary, branding matters. Your personal brand is the unique combination of your skills, your experiences that make who you are. And it's how you present yourself to the world, especially in the digital landscape. A strong personal brand not only helps you stand out amongst the masses, but also it can also open opportunities where you get to connect with the likes of yourself, which I respect very much in the space, you know, to say, how do you connect with people that you really admire and how do you learn from them? Because thanks to LinkedIn, thanks to Facebook and other platforms, that you can communicate with people from the villages, from, you know, globally in other countries as well, and kind of brand yourself and also build your brand in terms of who you want to be. And that, for me, in summary, is authenticity. If you're not authentic, it's going to be a problem for you. So be authentic, know your values, so that whatever you put on social media speaks to really who you are. Because sometimes you also don't write for others, you're also writing for yourself. Yeah.
Good point. Thank you. And it is important that you're presenting yourself as you are. And, you know, I've got a brand new mentee, and she asked, and in fact, at another presentation I did, somebody asked about humility, because people see humility and think that's being humble. And yes, it is, but it also isn't. It's actually humility as the other end of the spectrum from hubris, which is pride. So it's humility, but not being humble, because people are often humble and then they put themselves down and think that that's right. This is humility. I can be humble and put myself down. But actually, not an easy concept to grasp. So it's about being who you are and standing up for what you are and not being afraid to it. I'm so surprised by someone saying you're going to, you mustn't say so much of how good you're doing. Because people get jealous. Well, that's their problem, actually, not yours. So I also must share this. I was at a conference a while ago, and someone was actually talking about personal branding, and the person has done very well with personal branding, but every slide had at least 2 spelling mistakes on. Now, for me, her brand was rubbish because, maybe she didn't care, but I care. I'm the spelling police. And you've got to stand up there and say, this is me, this is my brand. For heaven's sake, use the spell checker. And if you insist on using capitals, set your spell checker for capitals, because that, for me, she lost all credibility just like that. So I'll always chuckle about that. Lynn, what can you tell us about building a brand, your personal brand?
Yeah, I think for me, I'm very much old school. It's not, I'm not on social media at all. I do like being on LinkedIn. I'm not one who posts every day at all, but I like to think that my publications obviously speak to my brand. So that's where I establish my branding, and also in my connections, both nationally and internationally. I was very fortunate in 2005 to be sent to an IFIP conference, which is the information, the Institute for Information Processing, or International Federation, sorry, for Information Processing. And I was very fortunate to connect with some very key academics at that conference. And I can honestly say that today I still have those connections, I still have those networks, and those networks have grown. So I've really established my brand through a very skilled kind of network of academics, people in industry. And I think through putting myself out there and taking up opportunities, as you mentioned earlier, Moira, I think you're talking about volunteers and that, volunteering in things like the IITPSA, having been the chair of the East Cape chapter there, having become a non-executive board member, having been involved in IFIP in working groups there for many, many years. You just develop such strong networks and such good relationships, and they say there's something in standing on the shoulders of great people, and I certainly do believe that it's not saying that it's not about what you know, but it's very much to do with who you know as well, and what you can learn through these different networks. So being in academia, I've certainly been very fortunate that I have been able to travel to many conferences nationally and internationally and develop these networks. And I kind of say, count my blessings every day in terms of that. And then the other aspect from being an academic, I must say, part of my branding, I really and truly do see that my stamp that I can put on every single student who graduates through the School of Information Technology, where I've been able to influence and impact on their lives. To me, that is also part of my branding. And to me, there's nothing nothing better than seeing my students graduate, whether it be undergraduates or postgraduates, but just to see them blossom and go out there. Then I know from a personal perspective, I've been able to change somebody's life, and that's really part of my branding. So although you're not going to find me out there in social media, to me, I've put my personal little stamp on every single graduate that I've been in touch with. And to me, that's what makes it special. So that's my branding.
But that's lovely, because we've got two different ways of doing it, and neither's right and neither's wrong. You know, I think that we can learn from what you've done, Lynn, although the opportunities for traveling to international conferences is less these days, simply because it's so expensive to get there.
Yeah.
But on the other hand, there are a lot of webinars and conferences that are held online that we can join, either at no cost or at low cost. So we can still do it. It's not the same. I'm very much an online person. I've sold e-learning for the last 100 years. But the fact remains that I do believe that there's something special about being in a room with people, and the bond that you get from meeting people face to face. But if those opportunities aren't available, you can still put yourself out there and make those kind of connections. So, you know, think about that. And in fact, it was something we wanted to talk about. It's the whole networking thing. And to attend events like this, and, you know, you maybe see someone in the audience and you think, let me connect with them. Anytime I go to a conference or speak at a conference, I will immediately afterwards connect with all the speakers on LinkedIn. Also, as I interview finalists for the IITPSA Awards, as I did Stella, I straight away go to LinkedIn, and sometimes even before I've interviewed them, I go and have a look at their LinkedIn profile. And honestly, if they don't have one, they've lost marks already, I'm afraid. And even if you don't post on it regularly, if you're not prepared to put yourself out there, then I worry about you as a winner of an award. And then the other thing I have to say, I think I possibly said it the last time, but anyway, if you ask me to connect to you and you've got no picture or picture of your dog, guess what? I'm not going to connect to you. As part of your personal brand is that you must have a photograph of yourself as a professional, not of your dog. Your dog, you might love him, he might even be very professional, but that's not you. So please, for the audience, if you haven't got a picture of yourself on LinkedIn, do it now. And, you know, it's not like the old days where you used to have to go and have a photo to take, and now you just go, you know, and even if it's a bad photo is better than no photo. So please, that's part of the brand. The other funny thing I want to tell you is that, but no, actually I won't. It's not the right forum to tell the story. How else can we, Stella, build our networks and make sure that they're valuable? And if we're somewhere and there are a lot of people in a room, how do we work the room? And I ask this question because that's something I personally am very bad at, because I actually am a shy person. Strange, I know you won't believe it, but I grew up a very shy child. So my going to people you can put me on a stage in front of 1,000 people and I'll talk to them, but ask me to go and interact with them one-on-one. But Stella, I'm sure you're very good at working a room. So tell us about that.
Oh, no, you know, believe me, I don't know whether I'm an introvert / extrovert, but I have my moments. There's been quite a moment where in my life I would walk in the room and struggle to break the room, if we call it. It's a very difficult thing, and I guess it comes from our own cultural settings or our own upbringing, where you are brought up to say, you know, when you walk into a room of elders, you wait for them to speak to you and so forth. Or either in my own practice or how I was raised, the elders will tell you in the village that you look down, you don't look people in the eye, the elders in the eye, and ask questions. And that can be misinterpreted. I guess, you know, those are things that work with your personality, your character, and all of that, and how you were raised, and they can contribute into either making or breaking you in how you walk into the room. But I think it's important that we do work, around those events, and how do we overcome the lack of confidence or speak to strangers and make a personal elevator pitch, if I may call it, to break the ice and start a conversation. So maybe practically something that I do is I engage in professional networks. So I do join quite a few professional associations. I do join few online communities and groups dedicated to women in tech. I am on WhatsApp groups of women in tech, platforms like LinkedIn, as you've mentioned, very active there, because those for me, they are valuable tools for connecting with my peers and also mentors. And that's why often my former dean, Professor Van Lille, will always say, are you sure you're an academic or you are an academic/industry public society person? Because I do, love my work in academia. I do love teaching. I do love research. I do get excitement. I won't even explain it when the students walk the stage and graduate. It's a different fulfillment altogether. But I think for me is just being present, being able to serve in the public space, which of course you need to have, I'll say the heart, I won't say something else. You really need to have a heart to step out and say, I'm going to assist the government, because with your credibility and your integrity, you don't want to tarnish your name. You've worked very hard to get where you are. Everybody knows, Prof will agree that it takes quite a lot to get a PhD in IT. It's not just something that you get overnight. So if you're going to put yourself out there to say, here I am, in this world where everybody's talking corruption and all of that, but how do we make a contribution in that space? I think for me, the bold moves was to step into the public SCiiS and say, here I am, I want to bring my expertise, I want to make my voice heard, and also to showcase that we do care about collaboration, partnership, and working with the public sector or the government. However, we are supposed to be bold enough to say, with all the integrity, with all our characters, we cannot just complain and sit on the other side. We have to go out there and say, but this is not right. You talk governance, but this is wrong. If it takes that, you're going to be fired or whatever, but at least you stood for what is right. The second thing that I think is important in breaking the room for me personally, mentorship, and I also call it sponsorship, because I often say when I mentor, it's not just about talking to you and enlightening you about your career. It's also about me saying, what do I do to make sure that I pull those young girls or those women who want to be like me to say, how do they even become better than me? Because if you look for mentors who can provide guidance, feedback, and support, and that's it. But I think sponsors within your organization, it's also an opportunity to say, how do we bring young women to step in the academic space and also become, like the Prof Lynn. We need more Prof Lynn. You're not going to get them if you are not going to mentor. So I think that also helps into breaking that ice into the room. Find yourself a mentor/sponsor.
Thank you. I'm going to change the subject slightly now and say, Lynn, why are you a member of IITPSA, and why would you encourage your students and colleagues to be members of IITPSA?
Yeah, well, I'd say for me, Moira, it's certainly been about making those very, very, very special connections and networks, and in many ways giving back as well. So with my experiences of being part of the East Cape chapter, obviously most of us based here in Port Elizabeth, but it's been such a great opportunity to be able to get involved in different webinars, in events. We've done a lot. We've had teachers workshops, and you just get to connect with people, understand that you can actually make a difference for them. And there's such a desire out there, and I'm speaking very much around the teachers now, for instance, such a desire to learn, and by being able to provide a platform for them to be able to engage with each other, because typically the the teachers that join us are the CAT teachers, the IT teachers, and I think many of them are feeling a little bit like alone within their school environments. They don't have a huge support structure there, and we've provided that support structure for them. So they often come back, they get excited about our annual teachers workshop that we hold, and the same goes for many of our other events. So, you know, if we talk about Women's Day, for instance, we have a Women in IT event. It brings women together, young, old, it doesn't matter. We engage with each other, you know, and I think for a lot of the younger generation, they can also get exposed to the different role models. And it just, you know, makes everybody excited as being part of this team IT. So I really do see IITPSA as part of my identity. I think I can really relate well to it. So I feel it's something that I also like to talk to in terms of their code of ethics and everything like that. And I think as a professional, it's really important for us to be able to connect with a society like the IITPSA. Because it does bring you together. I've been very fortunate, but as I've said, I do put myself out there. Sometimes I say to myself, I need to learn to say no, but I think I am who I am because I've always been one to say yes and to take on opportunities. And if I think of, you know, the special interest group in terms of cybersecurity now, SCiiS Cyber, you know, that used to be very much an interest group that was kind of based in Gauteng, and Prof. Kerry, Lynn and myself said, well, you know, we need to be involved in this. We are the Center for Research in Information and Cybersecurity at the Nelson Mandela. Why are we not part of SCiiS Cyber? And we put ourselves out there, we got involved, and we've been doing amazing things in terms of cyber challenges and hackathons, and it's just a way to connect and to be able to give back. So that's my sell in terms of why be part of IITPSA.
Thank you. And the other thing not to forget is that when you accepted into membership at IITPSA, at whatever grade, you're basically getting a stamp to say you've been assessed at this level, and that gives you your point from which you grow. And then as you grow through the membership levels, you can actually go to an employer and say, look at me, I'm a professional member of IITPSA. They have looked at my skills and checked my skills. And so it's very much, and I think I wanted to bring it up because I don't think we all use it enough as a career development tool to say, where am I on the IITPSA ranks? How do I get to the next point? Because that's how I grow my career. I've actually got a framework with membership levels of how to grow my career and how to know what I need to know to get to the next run. And so I just wanted to bring that up because I think that's very important. Before we play the video, Stella, do you have any closing remarks?
Thank you very much. I just want to maybe respond to Katlego Matlala, who's asking a question about, she wants to understand how to go about building those meaningful relationships as a first year. I'm assuming that it's first year in the university. Yeah, I think I spoke about, you know, joining professional bodies, maybe as a career person within the university as well. You do have professional, you know, student bodies that you can start with. And I mean, I have been a house mother in the university. One of my favorite jobs besides teaching, you know, is being a house mother to a ladies' day house. And I think those are the spaces where you kind of build relationships with your peers, you know, from diverse groups. South Africa is very privileged because we do take students in various institutions from various diverse groups. So it's quite nice, you know, to build relationships with people from even a different race from yourself, to learn from those ones, to understand maybe their challenges, because oftentimes we are very biased to think that others are not facing the same challenges that we're having. So I guess that will be my first step in terms of building, you know, those meaningful relationships. It doesn't have to be a huge professional IT body. You can start there, But it will be nice that you start as a first year to also understand institutions like IITPSA to say, what is it that they offer for me as a student? What contribution or meaningful things that I can get from institutions such as that? Because once you are in the university, you are on your own now to start crafting or building that brand. And branding is not really just being on social media. You know, you brand by the efforts that you're making to, to be present in those professional bodies, or maybe not so recognized bodies within your institution. That's my advice, Katlego. I hope it helps.
Thank you. And if I can just say, join IITPSA as a student member. The annual fees are very low, and basically it will give you access to huge networks of people if you choose to use them. Lynn, some closing remarks, please.
I think my closing remarks, just based on my experiences, is to say you basically get out what you put in. And if you're just going to sit back and you're going to wait and expect things to land on your plate, it's not going to happen. So take on every single opportunity that you can and put yourself out there. That's the way you learn, that's the way you grow, and that's the way you connect with others. So that's my part message.
And volunteer, nominate yourself. I always say this. Way back when, I nominated myself onto the Western Cape Chapter Committee of IITPSA. I then became the chapter chair, and a few years later, I was the president of IITPSA. I nominated myself because I believed that I could contribute. But don't wait for somebody else to do it for you. Do it for yourself. And have the confidence that you have something to contribute. Because you know what? You do. So, thank you all very much for coming. If you want to engage with any of us, do that on LinkedIn. Certainly, Stella is very active on LinkedIn. I'm more reactive than active, but I'm there all the time. If you want to start a conversation, let's do that, because we need to learn from each other. We need to do those networking. And I'm sorry it's a little late, but we couldn't play the video in the beginning, so that we're going to play it now. Please stay. It's actually quite a charming little 3-minute video. So thank you all very much. Tony, over to you. And thank you, Lynn, and thank you, Stella, for making yourselves available. You've been wonderful.
Thank you, Moira, and thank you to all three of you.
Thank you very much.
Sorry. Hope you can hear me. And we're going to start the video. May I just ask the three of you to mute your mics as well, please? Thank you.
As professionals in the world of information technology, we use our creativity, skills, and understanding of the world around us to make change. Each piece of code, technology, or information that we send out into the world takes on a life that has the potential to change the world around it. In our fast-paced world of AI, robotics, media, and communications, the actions we take dictate the future of these technologies. These technologies significantly impact people and the environment around us. As we grow, understand, and adopt AI both in our work and personal lives, we will be presented with moral and pragmatic decisions that can be used either in the upliftment or to the detriment of those around us. In everything we do, it is important to visualize, study, and calculate the impact that our creations will have. The fundamental way to achieve this is by imagining the impact your actions could have on you, your family, community, and society. Personal information can be readily stolen through phishing, viruses, and malware, leading to psychological, social, and financial harm to individuals. This abuse of personal information poses a threat not only to the affected individuals, but also to organizations at large. Imagine if this happened to you or your loved ones. We often underestimate the significance of our work, yet it's crucial to recognize that we are at the forefront of innovation. We play a pivotal role in propelling our world forward and shaping the future. We have the ability to mold our future into one that is filled with darkness, destruction, inequality, and unsustainability. It doesn't have to be this way, though. By using our skills, tools, and insights into the impacts our actions have on the world around us, we can build the future into something beautiful and exciting. A future that does not only benefit us, but benefits society and the generations that will come after us. We as information technology professionals can do this by always considering the ethical impacts of our actions. If you work in the ICT sector in South Africa, consider joining thousands of IT professionals committed to developing their unique skills across various sectors, all working towards building a stronger and more sustainable future for the greater good. To apply for membership with IITPSA, visit www.iitpsa.org.za.
Right, thank you, Tony, and thank you all for watching that. I was watching the numbers and not many left. But as Tony said, that video will be available on YouTube. Please share it. You know, apart from the commercial aspect of us saying, please join IITPSA, the underlying message about ethics and ethical decision-making is important for everybody. Right, thanks again to our panelists. Professor Lynn Futcher, Dr. Stella Bvuma, Tony for enabling the whole thing, and all of you for being here. Thank you. Bye.
Thank you, Moira. Thanks
And
so much,
cheerio.
Tony.
Thanks, Prof. Lynn. Thank you, Dr. Stella. Thank you, Moira. And thank you to all our attendees. Have a great evening. Bye for now.
Thank you. Bye now.